Surprise! Welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna be taking a look at my Q1 wrap up, all the books that I read from January through March. Super excited to film this. I've been trying to film wrap-ups since January, but obviously it's been a fail because I haven't been on my channel for a while. Hopefully I'm back in. You'll be seeing more of me. Fingers crossed. Let's jump in and talk about the books that I read for the first quarter of the year. We're gonna start off with a little bit of stats, nothing crazy like the genres that I read, how many books I read, or how many works I read. Then DNFs for the 3 months, and then we're gonna get into the books that I actually did finish. I did read a total of 26 works. I'm saying works because I believe 7 out of these 26 were short stories. I read quite an array of genres during the winter time. During winter and also summer, I love to read a lot of romance, so I did get in a lot of holiday romance reading. I got some regular romance. Of course, I have horror on here because you guys know that that's my initial love for reading. I got thrillers, of course. I have some YA fantasy, some dark fantasy, a little bit of mystery thrown in there, and we also have some romantasy. I love me a good romantasy. Like, I am a romantic at heart, and it sort of bleeds into my reading sometimes, so we're gonna be seeing some of that as well. Let's get into the DNFs for this quarter. I did have 3 DNFs. I want to get them out of the way. The first one that I DNF was the Nethergrim. This is a middle grade fantasy book, and it follows our main character. Don't remember. You know, I'm not going to remember 90% of these characters' names, so please forgive me. He basically lives in this town where 10 years ago an evil thing was defeated. 10 years later, things are starting to happen again, and for our main character, his little brother goes missing. But there's also other things happening in this town where there's animals being found dead, or just very creepy and negative things happening around the town. And then his little brother, I believe his name is Edmund. Edmund's little brother gets kidnapped or goes missing, and he rounds up together 2 of his other friends to go and search for his brother and possibly this evil spirit that was slain 10 years ago. I think it's 10 years ago. It could have been more. My issue with this book was that when I read a middle grade book, I want to be like middle grade adventure, like high pace, keep it going, fun kind of adventure. And for me, this one was a little boring. It was a little bit of a slower pace, which I like my middle grade to be a little bit of a faster pace, a little bit more kiddish, I guess. And I just wasn't interested enough in continuing with the story. I found myself bored and not caring. The Atlas 6. Oh my gosh, this book was on my TBR for such a long time. Heard great reviews about them. People rave about this series. Not sure if it's a series, but again, I was not interested enough to continue. The characters, 80% of the characters just rubbed me the wrong way. It was a whole bunch of pretentiousness. I didn't get very far into it, maybe 100 pages. I wasn't interested enough to continue reading the book to even tell you what it was about. So that was another DNF. And the last and final DNF was Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is a love story. That is all I know. That is all I'm going to tell you. I think I got like about 80 pages into this one, but I'm going to tell you something. If I had to hear our main characters' names one more time, I was going to gouge my eyes out because wow, like every sentence, it's like what so-and-so said, or so-and-so felt, or so-and-so this, and so-and-so that. And even with that, I still don't remember the names. But it was just such an overwhelming amount of times that I was listening to these characters' names. And again, I wasn't interested enough in continuing the story to find out where it went. This is going to be one where I might pick it up maybe later on in life. I don't know, where my tastes change when I get older. Maybe there comes a time where I want to read flowery writing, because that's what this, it's very flowery, very romantic. And even though I am a romantic at heart, leave me with just regular English sentences and don't like flower it up. So wasn't interested in continuing, and I DNF'd it. Let's jump into the books that I read in January. I started off the year with a nice holiday romance book, Snowden. This is actually the second book in a romance duology. Basically, at the beginning of the book, we have our main character. She is fleeing her wedding. She's like, I don't want to get married. You know that something happened in that relationship, and she is just like, I can't do this. As she's fleeing, she runs into, I do remember his name, Christian, because he really left an impact on my heart. But she runs into Christian and he's like,
I didn't see nothing, I don't know nothing.
You know that their relationship is kind of like not good. They went to high school together, they went to school together, they're from this small town. She's sort of like, damn it, why did I have to run into him? But she ends up fleeing. Years pass. She's like stressing about having to go back home because of this wedding situation. Because this is such a small town, she feels like everybody hates her because she left the perfect relationship, the perfect man. And she doesn't want to go back home for Christmas, but it's been a few years and her mother's hounding her like, please come home, please. No, but come on. Nothing bad is going to happen. Nobody has negative feelings, but she's not believing her mom. Enter Christian back into the scene. They run into each other. The banter between these two, this is a enemies to lovers trope, which by the way is my favorite romance trope to read about. I love a good banter and a good enemies to lovers. But they sort of arrange that they were going to go back to their hometown together and sort of act like they're dating, and the story develops from there. I love Christian. I love how he acts. I love how he treated our main character. I loved our main character as well. It was just a grand old time. I gave this book 4 stars. Then we jumped into a reread. I reread Divergent, and this was for the Kindle Unlimited seasonal challenge that they have on Kindle. And this was one of the choices, and I said, you know what, I've been wanting to reread this for a while, let's do it. The first time around that I read this, a gazillion years ago, like over 10 years ago, I ended up giving it 5 stars. I have since dropped my rating to 4 stars. I'm sure you know what this series is about. I'm not gonna get too into it, but I did drop my rating for this one, but I still had a real fun time in this world. Do I plan on rereading the rest of the series? I don't have plans to, but we'll see what happens because my reading is always so sporadic. The third book that I read for the month of January was The Violence. Wow, what a book, by Delilah S. Dawson. So unique. Here we're following a world where there's this virus, bacteria, I think it's a virus, where it turns people mad and they just have one focus in mind, and once this one person that they're after, like this rage that consumes them, they just go back to being their normal selves, and sometimes they don't even realize what they've done. This is set in Florida, which I related to, and our main character is so badass. And basically our main character, you know, the world is in turmoil, but our main character is living in a abusive relationship. I believe she has 2 kids. There's a little girl and then a teenage girl, and the mom is sort of basically trying to find a way to get out of this abusive relationship and to succeed and build a life for her and her daughters amidst all of this. Like I said, this was so unique and so good, and I'm so mad that it took me. This has been sitting on my shelves for 2 years. I know this because I left the receipt in here for whatever reason, and when I went to pick it up and I saw when I bought it, I was like, and this has been staring at me on my shelves for 2 years, like screaming, read me, and because it knew. This book knew that I was gonna love it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. My first 5-star happened in January, and with none other than Chad Lutzke, because come on. If you've never read anything by Chad Lutzke, please, I'm inviting you to do so. Everything that he writes is gold. He can do no wrong in my eyes. He has a way with coming of age stories. He has a way with relationships, and he always has a way of making me cry, like snot cry at the end of his books. I have cried at least at 99% of his books. Bruises on a Butterfly was no exception. Here we're following a young boy. I can't remember what happened to his mom, if she left or if she died, but the mom is no longer in his life. And his father, because of this, becomes a bit abusive. And so him and his friends, they have like this fort in the middle of this cornfield where they go. Nobody knows about this fort, only these 3 boys. But our main character one day decides, I'm gonna go live in this fort. I'm running away from home. My dad, like, no, I'm not taking this anymore. But on the night that he decides to run away from home, something falls from the sky. Something happens that changes the lives of these 3 boys forever. Such a good read. 5 stars. Please check it out if you haven't already, or just check out anything by this author, please. You will not be disappointed. I mean, you could be because technically not everybody has the same reading taste, but I would venture to say that you might enjoy it. The last book that I read for January, we're not going to talk a lot about. There Will Come a Darkness. This has been sitting on my shelves for years and years and years. Finally read it, gave it 3 stars. It was okay. It was a fantasy, your usual like 4 or 5 characters that are going to save the world against evil. I spent my time confused with this, not engaged enough, but I did like the world and some of the characters, and I did like the plot of it. I just didn't like how it was executed. 3 stars, neither here nor there. Moving on to February, I finished Ex-Boogeyman. This is a book I started in January. It was a buddy read. It was fantastic. If you like books that pay homage to 80s slasher films, this is the book for you. It was so fun, engaging. Our main character finds out that they're going to be remaking a movie that he played the villain in, and something really shifts in his head and he's out for revenge. So good, so fun. I think you would enjoy it. Obviously, Christopher Triana, you guys know that I adore his writing and his books, and this one was no exception. Finally finished The Bonny Swans by P.L. Watts. Love this. Historical fiction horror. We're following our main character. She ends up in this town on this dock, not remembering her name or anything, and she runs into this man that is looking for somebody to work at his house. I don't know if he's looking for somebody specific or he just picks her out of the bunch, or he thinks that she's someone else. But anyways, she's renamed Marguerite. She goes into this house. Her job is to take care of this little girl, and shit just hits the fan. A great read, a quick one. It's a very short one, but I loved it so much. 4 stars. Then I finished Reluctant Immortals by Gwendolyn. I want to say Kist, but I think it's Keist, and I should have checked this, and I should know her name because she's one of my favorite women authors. Like, she can do no wrong in my eyes either. Chad Lutsky, Gwendolyn Keist. I'm gonna say Keist because I think that's what it is. I got an arc of this in 2022. I started it, never finished it, but I finally did, and I don't know why it took so long. This is just basically 2 victims, one of Dracula, one of Mr. Rochester, and they get together in their immortal life, and they're trying to keep this evil of Dracula and Mr. Rochester at bay. But of course, things don't happen like that. This was such a fun and interesting read, and Gwendolyn just has a way of writing that just gets me all the time. She does female friendship relationships. Is that female friendship relationship? I think that's redundant. Female relationships so well. Love this one. Gave it 4 stars as well. Oh my gosh, you guys, my second 5-star read, The Lover by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Delectable, delicious, dark, whimsical. It's a short one. I don't want to say too much about it. Just go and read it. I think you will be swept off your feet. If you like a slow burn story, Silvia Moreno has a way of like just bringing these slow burn novels, and this one's a quick read. I believe you can find it on Kindle Unlimited. I will link it down below. I always link all the books that I talk about in my videos down in the description bar. If you're ever interested, or if I speak of something too quickly, you could go down there and check it out. Those links are commission based though, so just FYI. My second Christopher Triana for the year. You know, one of my things that I want to do this year is read more of the authors that I already love, because I'm always looking for new and new and new, and I sort of leave these authors that I love, their backlist, just in the back burner. And so I want to rectify that this year. Christopher Triana, loved. I started this one a couple years ago as well. Was able to finish it this year. We're following this man Christmas Eve. He's going hunting. He's alone. He's down in the dumps. I believe his wife left him. He just doesn't have anything to live for, so he just decides to go into the woods to go hunting on Christmas, not to feel so lonely. Runs into this woman that's running away, that says she's been kidnapped and is being abused, and then we run into the man that's running after this woman who apparently is the woman's wife. So Stories going back and forth. Our main character doesn't know who to believe, and shit ensues from there. So good, entertaining. It wasn't that long either. 4 stars. Here is one of the series that I read, the Improbable Meet Cute series. It's a romance meet cute type of series, and I loved all of these books. And I wish I would have done a little bit more research into this video, and I would have put which one my favorite was. But if I had to choose, I think the Christina Lauren story was my favorite. I could be wrong, but I loved all of them. I think that out of the 6, all of them but one got 5 stars, and that one got 4 stars. If you like romance, I think you would like these. They're part of Kindle Unlimited. It's like a Kindle series. They have the audiobooks available with them as well for free, or not for free because you pay for the subscription, but it was so good. I would probably listen to these stories again. They just really filled my soul. Then I finally finished or read Stolen Tongues. It was kind of a disappointment. The first half of this book was so good. Past the second half was just, oh my gosh, it took forever. It was repetitive. It like overdragged itself. And it was such a shame because it was such a good story and it had such creepy moments. But halfway through the book, I just lost interest. Even though I did finish it, I lost interest. Because of this, I gave it 3 stars. But if we could just have the first half of the book and that's it, have it resolved, it would have been the perfect book. There was moments that were creepy. We're in the Appalachian Mountains, in this cabin. There's voices and sounds, and we're following this couple that goes to stay there. It's actually the wife's parents' home, and so it was just so creepy, and I wish it wouldn't have been overdrawn the way it was. Then I read The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins, I believe is the author. I'll put this here. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. It was an impromptu read. This basically has to do with this couple, Camden and his wife, and he is part of this family in North Carolina. I believe it's North Carolina. They're rich, they have money, and the matriarch has died and has left everything to her son, to one of her sons, because I think it's like 2 or 3 kids, maybe 2, and one of them gets everything. But guess what? He doesn't want it. But his wife is like, what? No. I'm gonna convince my husband that we do want this. The more that she hears of the secrets and just the buffoonery that's happening in this family, the more she wants to convince her husband to keep it, because he deserves this for all this bad abuse or this just bad blood that has been in the family ever since. And so I loved this story. It kept me entertained. And like I said, it was an impromptu read and it did not disappoint. I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour, another 4-star read. I loved this one. The only complaint that I have about this book is actually towards the audiobook. I felt like sometimes it was just a little too like this. Like the narrator's tone of voice was so like lyrical almost, and the book is not lyrical, but it gave it this lyrical floral feeling to it. But I loved this book. It has to do with our 2 main characters. Somehow one day something is discovered which leads them back to Everett, which is our main character's best friend. And she finds herself like defending him. There are dark secrets and dark like folklore behind this, which is this vampiric creature that lives amongst them and everybody is afraid of. So it was a good ride. There was twists and turns. It was written beautifully, but I do love this author's writing. This is the second book that I read of hers, and just she really knows how to write. Then I read another one of these short stories, but this series, part of the Kindle as well. I don't know what it's called, but it's more of a thrillery series than a romance. It's very dark. And the one that I read was Murder at the Royal Ruby, which is the first collection or the first story in the collection in the series. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. It was entertaining. It follows this theater, this girl that works there in the ticket booth, but she's an aspiring actress. But this theater is haunted, and on the first night that we're in the story, our main actress dies and they feel like she's been murdered through the ghost that's haunting this theater. It was great, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my gosh, it was the best thing I read. It was entertaining. It was okay. And if you just want to read something that's quick, that's thrillery, or that's like a little haunting, you might check this one out, but it wasn't anything to write home about. And then the last book that I read for February is the second book in the Zodiac Academy series, Ruthless Fae. I'm currently reading book 4 in the series and I'm losing a little bit of steam for it. I really enjoy this series, specifically book 1 and 2, really loved them. But as I go more and more and deeper into the series, each one of these books is like a week's worth of events. Like, we're in book 4 and these girls, I'll tell you what it's about in a minute. These girls are still in their freshman year. Like, can we move it along? And I feel like each one of these books takes weeks at a time. They're just too long. They're like 12-hour long ebooks. I'm reading the ebooks off of Kindle Unlimited, but like 12-hour long ebooks of the same thing happening, the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same reactions, it's a bully romance, so the same kind of bullying over and over, and it's getting a little old. But I did enjoy book 2. I gave this one 4 stars. Basically, we're following these twins and they were born, they're in the mortal world, living their normal lives. They're orphans. I believe they're around 16 or 17 years old. They're trying to live their life the best that they can. And one day somebody pops into their life telling them, hey, you're actually Fae. You're living in this world erroneously. Let me bring you back to the Fae world where you could be an heir to the throne. Their parents were the king and queen of this Fae land, and they died and they were cast out into this thing because they didn't want them to claim the thrones. There are other heirs that are in line to get the throne and they don't want these girls coming in, and so they treat them bad at this academy. And in this academy, everything is based off of elements and the zodiac, which I love. I love that element, the zodiac element of it. Oh, just knocks my socks off. And they have to endure all this bullying. They don't want anything to do with the throne. So anyways, it goes on and on and on. And like I said, I'm getting a little bit bored. But if you've read this series or you're in the middle of reading it, let's chat about it in the comment section. Just keep it spoiler free, please. I'm interested to know if anybody else feels the same way on how long and repetitive these books are. And now let's jump into March. What? And now let's jump into March, which is the last month of my reading. I read the Lobizona duology. Loved this duology so much. I'm blocking my light. I love this duology so much. It has to do with Argentinian folklore. Our main character actually lives in Miami. Her and her mom, they're undocumented from Argentina and they're hiding in Miami. But this girl, our main character, Manu, she's always felt weird. She has these weird eyes, this weird characteristic. Her mom tells her that they're actually running from her dad's family. They're not good people. They were left in Argentina. They're not good people, and she wants to keep this girl a secret because if not, the family will come back and come take the girl and like kidnap her. But obviously there's always something else to the story. What I loved so much about these books is that I really related to them because I am Argentinian, of an Argentinian mom, and I lived in Miami. I drank mate, I love milanesas, I love dulce de leche, which are just all Argentinian delicacies. They're really not delicacies, but they're Argentinian foods and customs, like drinking mate. Oh my gosh. And so I just felt so nostalgic reading this from Manu's point of view when she was in Miami and all the Argentinian things. I just loved it so much. I loved the characters. I loved the friendships. I actually gave Lobizona, which is the first book, 5 stars, and I gave the second book, Cazadora, 4 stars. And from my understanding, Romina Garber, the author, she is Argentinian herself, and I believe she lived in Miami. I'm not sure if she did live there, if she still lives there, or what the correlation is there, but love these, loved. The Resort, it's a newer release. I listened to the audiobook for this. I don't even know how I got the audiobook, like the day before it released through Libby. It was super weird, but I was happy. I was so looking forward to this one. It was a disappointment, 3 stars. It felt very soap opera-y to me, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it. Also read Small Angels by Lauren Owen. What a dark, whimsical read this was. Loved it, loved the vibes, loved the characters. Essentially, we're following this family and they have been living on this property for years and years and years. It has been passed down and passed down for eons and eons. And there's a story behind this property. There's this little church called Small Angels, and then there's these woods behind the home. And there is this spirit that roams these woods, and this family sort of keep that spirit at bay, keep them content, keep them calm, until one day they don't, and shit hits the fan because of one of the girls, one of the sisters that live in this home. Reading about the sisters, the matriarch of the family, and just the goings on through years and years and years was so fun. It was so whimsical in my opinion, but like darkly so. 4 stars. If you've read this one, let me know if you loved it or you didn't. I'm so happy I'm ending with a 5-star read. Razorblade Tears.
Why did it take me so long?
By S.A. Cosby. I'm gonna say something that probably people are not gonna like. But this is just me, and this is just how I view my reading and how I want my fiction. I don't want to hear important topics. When somebody tells me, oh my gosh, there's such important topics in that book. There's racial topics, important racial topics, or important political topics, I get turned off. I really, really do. I don't know what it is. Well, actually, I do know what it is. I don't want to read about everyday things that torment my mind in my fiction. I want my fiction to be just that. To be fantastical, to be outrageous, to be like something that I can't even picture happening. I want it to be ridiculous, over the top, something that can't happen in this real world. So when you're telling me that there's racial issues that are talked about in a book, I don't care. But boy, does this author know how to do it. I was gripped from beginning to end. I was rooting for both of our main characters. I was rooting for everything in this book. It was so good. And as I'm reading and I'm like, man, wow, it really is important. I didn't feel like I was reading of important topics, even though I was. I know that doesn't make sense, and it's kind of like I'm just spitting at the mouth. We are following the parents of this gay married couple, Isaiah and Derek, and they are a mixed couple. Isaiah is black, Derek is white. And so one day they are found just knocked out and unrecognizable. We first meet Isaiah's dad, Ike. That's who we start the story with, is who gets the news first of his son being. Then we get into the story of him getting together with Derek's dad and coming together to find out who killed their boys. But at the beginning of this, their relationship is so rocky because they are different races, and these two dads are sort of trying to navigate life without their sons and life in the aftermath of their death, and how they left things with them, how they were not okay with them being gay, how they sort of stopped talking to them. So they're feeling all this guilt from this relationship that they're mourning now. And so when these two dads get together, these two dads are from two different ends. We have Buddy Lee, which is Derek's dad. He is trailer trash. He is a drunk. His wife left him. He's down in the dumps. He's a drinker. He doesn't care about anything, and he's just whatever. He's rough. And then we have Ike, which is Isaiah's dad, and he's done time. He's killed people. But he's on the right path now. He has his family. He has a business, and his life is going good. And when these two get together, boy, but I loved seeing their relationship blossom. I love seeing them get together for a greater good and trying to find out and they're willing to do whatever it takes. The lengths that this book goes to was so good, so entertaining. I could talk about this for the rest of forever. 5 stars. If you haven't read this and you're like me and people tell you that this is like an important book to read and it sort of turns you off, please don't. This author is so good at keeping you gripped in the story and giving you an amazing plot line and story. I just couldn't put it down. I do have Blacktop Wastelands, I believe is the name I actually owned that book before this one, but I am like eager to read it because I really want to hear more of this author's voice. Fantastic, fantastic, 5 stars. And how pretty is this book? It's just beautiful. So that's it, you guys. Those are the books that I read for the first quarter of the year. Let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts. Let's chat books in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one, hopefully real soon. Bye.